Amy Carter stood at the window of the transport ship, watching the colors of space blur past. She was nervous, though she tried not to show it. Beside her stood Peter Hayes, a scientist who couldn't stop smiling, and Jake Morrison, a soldier who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. They were the first humans to meet aliens. Real aliens, not in movies or books, but actual living beings from other worlds. The thought made Amy's heart race. The ship dropped out of hyperspace, and suddenly there it was, Unity Prime. The alien space station looked like a massive flower floating in the darkness, each petal a different color and shape. Amy had seen pictures, but seeing it in person took her breath away. When they docked and stepped off the ship, an alien was waiting for them. Ambassador Threnok was tall and looked like a giant insect, with multiple arms and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. A small device on his chest translated his clicking sounds into English. "Welcome, humans. The Assembly wants to know about your species. You appeared suddenly and your technology grew very fast. This is unusual." Amy noticed he didn't say it was impressive, just unusual, like they were some kind of puzzle that didn't quite fit. The meeting hall was enormous. Hundreds of aliens filled the space, all different shapes and sizes. Some had fur, some had scales, some seemed to be made of light or crystal. They all turned to watch as the humans entered. A being made of floating crystals spoke, and the translation system turned the musical sounds into words. "Welcome to the Galactic Assembly. Please tell us about your home." Peter stepped forward, excited to share. He activated a holographic display showing Earth spinning in space. "Our planet has oxygen and nitrogen in the atmosphere. We have lots of water and one moon. The gravity is standard for life-bearing worlds." Suddenly the room went quiet. Every alien was staring at them with an intensity that made Amy uncomfortable. A warrior covered in dark fur stood up. His name was Zekthar, and he looked like someone had crossed a wolf with a bear and made it walk on two legs. "Did you say one moon? And your planet type is what we call a death world?" The word hung in the air like a curse. Amy exchanged glances with Jake and Peter. "I'm sorry, but what exactly do you mean by death world?" Zekthar's fur stood on end, making him look even bigger. "A planet where everything tries to kill you, where survival is the only rule, where predators hunt in the dark and prey must run fast or die, where sickness spreads and kills without mercy, where even the weather can end your life in moments." Peter looked confused. "Well, yes, Earth has all those things, but that's normal, isn't it?" A massive reptilian alien stood up. Her name was Korana, and she was easily 8 feet tall with muscles that looked like they could bend steel. "No, it is not normal. Death world species are rare. They are dangerous. We have rules about them." Jake's expression hardened. "Are you saying we're not welcome here?" "I'm saying," Korana replied slowly, "that if you truly come from a death world, then we need to think very carefully about what that means." For all of us, Amy finally understood. These aliens weren't dismissing them. They were afraid. Actually afraid of humans. The next 3 days were frustrating. The humans were confined to their rooms while the Assembly argued about what to do with them. Amy spent the time reading everything she could about the alien species in the Assembly. What she learned shocked her. The average alien world was paradise compared to Earth. Stable weather, no earthquakes, no volcanoes, seasons that barely changed. Predators existed but were small and manageable. Diseases were rare and slow to spread. Earth was the nightmare. Earth was the planet that killed its own children, and only the strongest, smartest, and luckiest survived. "They've never faced anything like us," Amy told the others. "They've lived in peace for so long, they've forgotten what real danger looks like." On the 4th day, Amy was called to meet with the Security Council alone. She walked through hallways that emptied as she approached. Aliens pressed themselves against walls, giving her space like she might explode at any moment. The council chamber held 7 aliens, each representing a major power in the Assembly. They all watched her with wary eyes. The crystal being, whose name was Jareth, spoke first. "We have studied your world's data. Your planet has killed most of its own life forms multiple times throughout history. Mass extinctions happen regularly. Your species evolved during an ice age. Your atmosphere was once poisonous. Your ground shakes and splits open. Your moon pulls at your oceans, creating massive waves. Your star sends radiation that can kill. Your weather includes storms that destroy cities. You have diseases that mutate faster than cures can be made. Your predators hunt other predators. Everything about your world is designed to kill." The being paused, and the translator somehow conveyed exhaustion. And yet you survived. You built cities. You created art and music. You reached space faster than most species. We need to understand how this is possible. Amy thought carefully before answering. We didn't have a choice. Adapt or die. That was the rule on Earth for millions of years. Every human alive today comes from ancestors who survived plagues, predators, starvation, and war. We carry that survival instinct in our blood. That is what frightens us, Karana said quietly. You are warriors by nature. Your entire evolution was a war against your own planet. We have built our civilization on peace. What happens when warriors meet peacekeepers? That depends on how you treat us, Amy said, meeting the large alien's eyes. Yes, we know how to fight. We had to learn that to survive. But we also learned cooperation, friendship, and kindness. We learned that working together is stronger than fighting alone. We've spent thousands of years trying to overcome our violent instincts. We came here hoping to find friends, not enemies. Zekthar leaned forward. And if we reject you? If we decide you're too dangerous to join us? Amy felt a flash of anger but controlled it. Then you'll have made enemies out of people who wanted to be friends. That seems like a waste. The council members looked at each other, communicating in ways Amy couldn't follow. Finally, Jareth spoke. We have a proposal. 3 humans will live on a Crithian colony world for 1 year. You will live among their families, learn their culture, and teach them about humanity. If this succeeds peacefully, we will reconsider your application to join the assembly. It wasn't perfect, but it was a chance. I accept, Amy said. Who will go? You will choose, Karana replied. Choose carefully, Commander Carter. Your species' future depends on these 3 people. Amy nodded, her mind already working through the possibilities. They needed people who could show humanity at its best. People who were strong but kind, capable but gentle, smart but humble. She had 3 months to find them and prepare. 3 months before humanity's real test would begin. As she left the council chamber, Amy couldn't help but think about the irony. Humanity had spent centuries dreaming of meeting aliens, imagining first contact in 100 different ways. But nobody had imagined this. Nobody had thought the aliens would be afraid of us. The galaxy thought humans were monsters waiting to happen. Now Amy had to prove them wrong. She just hoped she could. 3 months later, Amy stood on the landing pad of a world called New Dawn. It was the 3rd colony established by the Crithian species, and it was beautiful in a strange way. The plants were purple instead of green, and 2 suns hung in the sky, creating double shadows everywhere. The buildings looked more grown than built, with smooth curves instead of straight lines. With Amy were the 2 other humans chosen for this mission. Lisa Chen was a doctor who studied how different human cultures worked together. She was small, quiet, and had a gift for making people feel comfortable. Marcus Webb was a former soldier who now taught children. He was big, strong, and had more patience than anyone Amy had ever met. Their guide was a young Crithian named Velcor. He looked like a large cat that had learned to walk on 2 legs, covered in golden fur with darker stripes. His ears moved constantly, showing his emotions more clearly than his face. Welcome to New Dawn, Velcor said through his translator. His real voice was a series of growls and purrs that the device turned into English. I should warn you, many people here are nervous about meeting you. Stories about humans have been spreading since you arrived at Unity Prime. What kind of stories? Marcus asked, keeping his voice neutral and calm. Velcor's ears flattened against his head in what might have been embarrassment. Exaggerations mostly. People say humans can hold their breath for hours, that you can fall from great heights without getting hurt, that you never get sick, that you can eat poison and be fine, that you're almost impossible to kill. Lisa laughed softly. We're not that tough. We're just harder to kill than most, I guess. They were taken to a compound on the edge of a Crithian neighborhood. The plan was simple. Live among the Crithians. Learn their ways. Teach them about humans. Prove that different species could live together peacefully. The first few weeks were difficult. Crithian parents kept their children away from the humans. Whenever Amy walked through the market, conversations stopped. People stared, then looked away quickly when she met their eyes. The humans were invited to community gatherings, but they often found themselves standing alone as others avoided them. Amy understood. Fear was hard to overcome, especially when it was based on instinct rather than reason. The Crithians were predators on their own world, but gentle predators. They hunted small, timid animals. They had never faced anything that could hunt them back. Humans scared them on a level they couldn't fully explain. Then, one afternoon in the market, everything changed. Amy was with Velcor, looking at strange alien fruits and trying to learn what Crithians ate, when she heard a child scream. Her head snapped toward the sound before she even thought about it. A Crithian cub, probably 5 or 6 years old, had climbed onto a decorative sculpture. Now he was dangling by one paw, 20 feet above hard stone pavement. He was too scared to climb back up, and his grip was slipping. The adult Crithians were panicking, shouting for help, for equipment, for someone to do something. It would take minutes to get safety gear. The cub didn't have minutes. Amy ran. Later, Velcor would try to explain to others what he saw, but words failed him. The human moved like water flowing downhill, like lightning striking. She covered the distance to the sculpture in seconds. Then she jumped, her hands finding holds in the decorative carving, and she climbed. Amy scaled the wall with a speed that seemed impossible. She reached the cub just as his paw slipped free. Her hand shot out, caught his wrist, and she pulled him against her chest. Then, moving carefully but quickly, she climbed back down one-handed while the cub clung to her. When her feet touched the ground, she was immediately surrounded by grateful Crithians. The cub's mother, a female named Therna, was crying. She touched Amy's face with trembling paws in what Amy somehow knew was a gesture of deep gratitude. "How?" Velcor asked, his voice shaking. "How did you move like that?" "That wall wasn't made for climbing. You just treated it like it was a ladder." Amy was breathing hard, her heart pounding from adrenaline. "Humans climb. It's something we've always done. We evolved to move through trees and over rocks. That wall had places to grip. I just used them." "But you didn't think," Therna said, wonder in her voice. "You just acted. You risked yourself without hesitation to save my child." "Of course," Amy said, as if it was the simplest thing in the world. "He needed help." The story spread through the colony like fire through dry grass. The human female had saved a cub. She moved like wind-made flesh. She put herself in danger without thinking twice for a child that wasn't even her own species. The next day, when Amy walked through the market, everything was different. Conversations didn't stop. Instead, Crithians approached her. They wanted to talk, to ask questions, to understand. Parents brought their cubs to meet the human who had saved Therna's son. One cub, a brave little female named Kisra, walked right up to Amy and asked, "Is it true your world tried to kill you every day?" Amy knelt down to be at the cub's eye level. "Earth can be dangerous," she admitted, "but it's also beautiful. It taught us to be strong, yes, but it also taught us to be kind, because when everything around you is dangerous, you learn to value the people who stand beside you. You learn that helping each other is how you survive." Kisra thought about this, her ears twitching. "Will you tell us stories about Earth?" "I'd love to," Amy said, smiling. Over the next few weeks, the barrier between humans and Crithians crumbled. Lisa started teaching cubs about human art and music. She showed them paintings from Earth and taught them songs. The young Crithians were fascinated by how humans used color and sound to express emotions. Marcus introduced Crithian teenagers to Earth sports. Soccer became especially popular. The young Crithians loved the teamwork required, the strategy, the joy of competing without anyone getting hurt. Marcus was patient and encouraging, treating the alien teens exactly like he treated his human students back on Earth. Amy joined the colony's emergency response team. The Crithians were amazed by human endurance. Amy could run for hours without stopping. She could lift weights that seemed impossible for her size. She could squeeze through spaces that the broader-chested Crithians couldn't navigate. But more than her physical abilities, the Crithians were impressed by her determination. Amy never gave up. If there was a problem, she worked at it until she found a solution. If someone needed help, she provided it without being asked. One evening, Velcor invited Amy to his family's home for dinner. His parents were nervous at first, but Amy was respectful and genuinely interested in their culture. She asked questions about their food, their traditions, their history. Velcor's mother, an older female named Shara, asked the question that many Crithians wanted to know. "Commander Carter, may I ask you something personal?" "Of course," Amy said. "When you smell our cubs, what do you feel?" "We are prey animals compared to you. Does your instinct tell you to hunt?" Amy was quiet for a moment, understanding the real question. "When I see your cubs, I feel protective. Humans evolved as cooperative hunters, yes, But we also evolved as parents who protect our young fiercely. When I see a child, any child, my instinct is to keep them safe. Not to harm them. Shara's ears lifted with relief. We were told that Death World species only know violence. Earth taught us violence, Amy admitted. But it also taught us love, cooperation, art, music, laughter, and hope. We're not just survivors. We're people who learned that life is precious because it's so fragile. The conversation continued late into the night, and when Amy finally left, she knew something important had changed. The Crithians were no longer afraid. They were curious, friendly, and genuinely interested in building a relationship with humanity. As Amy walked back to her quarters under the light of 2 alien moons, she felt hopeful for the first time since leaving Earth. Maybe this would work. Maybe humans and aliens really could be friends. She just had to make sure nothing went wrong for the next several months. 6 months into the exchange program, the 3 humans had become part of the New Dawn community. Cubs no longer hid when they approached. Adults invited them to social gatherings. The initial fear had transformed into genuine friendship. Amy had been officially accepted onto the colony's emergency response team. It was an honor that Velcor explained was rarely given to outsiders. The team leader, an older Crithian named Draknor, had initially been skeptical, but had come to respect Amy's skills and dedication. Then came the day that would change everything. A geological survey team had gone into the mountains to map mineral deposits. The mountains on New Dawn were considered safe, but the planet was still young by geological standards. An unexpected seismic event, small but powerful, caused part of a cave system to collapse. 3 Crithians were trapped inside. One of them was Velcor. Amy was in the market with Lisa when the emergency call came through. She ran to the response center immediately, her heart pounding. When she arrived, Draknor was studying a 3-dimensional map of the cave system, his ears flat against his head in distress. "The situation is bad," he explained grimly. "The main passage is blocked by unstable rock. If we try to drill through, we might cause a total collapse. We're searching for alternative routes, but it could take days." "They don't have days. Their air supply is limited." Amy studied the holographic map carefully. There was a narrow passage barely explored that might provide access. But it was small, very small. "I can fit through there," Amy said, pointing to the passage. "Crithians are broader through the chest and shoulders than humans, but I think I can make it." Draknor's ears went back. "That passage is extremely dangerous. Sharp rocks, very narrow, dark. It could collapse at any moment." "Then we should hurry," Amy said simply. Word spread quickly through the colony. Everyone knew Velcor was trapped. Everyone knew a human was attempting the rescue. By the time Amy was geared up with climbing equipment, communications gear, and medical supplies, a crowd had gathered at the cave entrance. Therna, the mother whose cub Amy had saved months ago, pushed through the crowd. "You don't have to do this. Velcor is not your responsibility." Amy checked her equipment one last time. "He's my friend. On Earth we have a saying, leave no one behind. It's not about responsibility. It's about loyalty." The descent into the caves was a nightmare. The passage was so narrow that Amy had to crawl on her belly in some places, rock pressing against her back and chest at the same time. Her breathing echoed in her ears. She controlled it carefully, staying calm despite the fear that tried to claw its way up her throat. This was the kind of situation that killed people on Earth. Tight spaces, unstable rock, darkness. But humans had been crawling through caves for hundreds of thousands of years. This was terrifying, but it was also somehow familiar. She squeezed through a gap that tore her uniform and scraped skin from her shoulder. The pain was sharp and immediate. She felt blood start to run down her arm, warm and wet, but she kept moving. 20 minutes into the crawl, moving slower than she wanted, she heard voices ahead. "Velcor, can you hear me, Amy?" His voice was weak, strained with pain. "You shouldn't be here. It's too dangerous." "I am here," Amy called back. "So let's focus on getting you out." She emerged into a small chamber where the 3 Crithians huddled together. The ceiling was low, barely high enough for them to sit up. The air was thin and stale, heavy with carbon dioxide. Velcor had been hit by falling rock. His breathing was labored, and Amy could tell he had internal injuries. Another Crithian, a young male named Torak, had a broken leg. The third, a female named Lisra, had a head wound that was bleeding slowly. Amy immediately went to work. She had trained in emergency medicine as part of her military service. She splinted Torak's broken leg, treating him as gently as possible. She cleaned and bandaged Lysra's head wound. Then she gave Velcor painkillers from her medical kit and checked his vital signs. As best she could, all three Crithians were staring at her injured shoulder with an intensity that made her nervous. "Amy," Velcor said quietly, using her first name for the first time. "Your blood. It smells wrong." The other two nodded slowly, their nostrils flaring as they processed the scent. "Wrong how?" Amy asked, keeping her voice calm and steady. Torak struggled to find words. "Like danger. Like predator. Like something at the top of the food chain. Our instincts are screaming at us to run, but there's nowhere to run to." Amy understood then. Crithians were predators, but gentle ones. They hunted small, harmless animals. They had never developed the ability to recognize truly dangerous predators by scent, because they had never needed to. But humans carried the chemical markers of prey that became predator. Humans evolved alongside creatures that could kill them easily. Some ancient survival instinct had been encoded into human biochemistry, and even alien noses could detect it. "I'm not going to hurt you," Amy said softly. "I'm here to help. I'm your friend." Lysra made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. "We know, that's what makes this so confusing. Our instincts say run. Our minds say trust. You're a predator who saves prey. It doesn't make sense." "Welcome to being human," Amy said with a slight smile. "We confuse ourselves most of the time, too. We're predators who keep pets. We hunt animals but also protect endangered species. We're capable of terrible violence but spend most of our time trying to be kind. We're walking contradictions." She activated her communicator. "Draknor, I've reached them." "3 casualties. 1 critical, 2 serious. The passage I used is too narrow for extraction with their body types. You'll need to continue drilling, but I need you to stabilize the surrounding rock first. I'll stay with them and provide medical support." "Amy," Draknor's voice crackled through the device. "Your biometric readings show you're injured. You're bleeding. Just a scrape on my shoulder. I'm fine." For the next 3 hours, Amy kept the 3 Crithians stable and alert. She monitored their vital signs, adjusted their positions to help them breathe better, and talked to them constantly to keep their spirits up. She told them stories about Earth, about mountains higher than any on New Dawn, about oceans so deep that sunlight couldn't reach the bottom, about deserts where the temperature could kill in minutes, about forests so thick you could walk for days without seeing the sky. "Your world sounds terrifying," Lysra said. "It can be," Amy admitted, "but it's also beautiful. Earth has sunsets that paint the whole sky in colors you've never seen. We have auroras that dance in the polar skies. We have seasons that transform the landscape. We have thousands of different cultures, languages, and traditions. Earth is harsh, but it's also wonderful. That's why we fight so hard to survive, because life is precious." Velcor was quiet for a long moment. "I understand now. You don't survive because you're cruel or violent. You survive because you love life. You love it enough to fight for it." "Yes," Amy said simply. When the rescue team finally broke through the rock, it had been almost 4 hours. They extracted the 3 injured Crithians first, moving them carefully through the new passage that had been carved with drilling equipment. Amy was the last to leave. She crawled back through that nightmare passage, every muscle screaming, her shoulder throbbing with pain, exhausted beyond measure. But she was alive, and so were the 3 Crithians she had saved. She emerged from the cave to find what looked like the entire colony waiting. Thousands of Crithians stood in silence watching her. Draknor stepped forward first. "You went into darkness and stone. You bled for our people. You risked your life without hesitation." Amy swayed slightly, exhaustion and blood loss catching up with her. "That's what friends do." The Crithians began a sound Amy had never heard before. A low thrumming that came from deep in their chests, hundreds of voices joining together in harmony. The vibration moved through the air, through the ground, through Amy's bones. Velcor, being carried on a stretcher but conscious, called out weakly, "That is the song of honor. We sing it for heroes. We sing it for those who embody the best of what life can be." Therna approached Amy, tears in her eyes. "You are Death Worlder. Your blood smells of predators and danger, but your actions speak of courage and compassion. You are the strangest, most wonderful contradiction we have ever known." Amy felt tears in her own eyes as medical personnel guided her to a stretcher. As they carried her toward the medical center, the Crithians continued their song. And Amy finally understood what this year had really been about. It wasn't about proving humans weren't dangerous. They were dangerous. It was about proving that being dangerous didn't mean being evil, that strength could be used to protect instead of to harm, that the same instincts that made human survivors could also make them heroes. The cubs had scented her blood and frozen, instinct warning them of danger, but now they understood. The apex of Death Worlds wasn't about being the strongest or the deadliest. It was about being strong enough to be gentle when it mattered most. The cave rescue became interstellar news within days. Footage from Draknor's helmet camera showed Amy crawling through impossible spaces, her determination clear even through the darkness and danger. Images of her emerging from the cave, injured and exhausted, surrounded by grateful Crithians, appeared on news feeds across dozens of worlds. Amy Carter's face became known throughout assembly space. The human who smelled like death but acted like a hero, the Deathworlder who proved that harsh worlds could breed compassion as well as strength. The remaining months of the cultural exchange passed in a blur. More aliens came to New Dawn, wanting to meet the humans, to understand them, to learn from them. Delegations from other species arrived to observe and report back to their governments. Lisa's art and music programs expanded. She started teaching not just Crithian cubs but young aliens from half a dozen species. They learned about human creativity, about how art could express emotions that words couldn't capture. Lisa showed them paintings from Earth's history, played music from different human cultures, and watched as alien children discovered new ways to express themselves. Marcus's sports programs became a colony-wide phenomenon. Soccer fields appeared in multiple districts. Teams formed, mixing Crithian and human players. The games became social events where families gathered to watch, cheer, and celebrate together. Marcus taught them that competition could be joyful, that winning wasn't as important as playing well, and that sports could build friendships across any divide. Amy continued working with the emergency response team, but she also started training sessions. She taught Crithian responders about human endurance techniques, about how to push through pain and exhaustion when lives depended on it. She explained human psychology, how humans could continue functioning even when terrified, how they could make decisions under pressure. But perhaps more importantly, Amy learned from the Crithians. She learned about their philosophy of community, about how they prioritized group harmony over individual glory. She learned about their approach to conflict resolution, which emphasized understanding over winning. She learned that strength came in many forms, and the Crithians' gentleness was its own kind of power. 8 months into the exchange, a formal gathering was called. Representatives from Unity Prime arrived, including Ambassador Threnok and members of the Security Council. The entire colony assembled to hear what would be said. Draknor spoke first, his voice strong and clear. When humans arrived on New Dawn, we were afraid. We had heard stories about Deathworlders, about species forged in violence and hardship. We believed that such species could only bring pain and conflict. He paused, his eyes finding Amy in the crowd. We were wrong. Commander Carter and her companions have shown us something we had forgotten. Strength without kindness is cruelty. Kindness without strength is weakness. Humans have both. They are strong because their world demanded it. They are kind because they chose it. Derna stepped forward, young Kisra beside her. The cub, now several months older and bolder, spoke clearly. Teacher Lisa says that on Earth there's a saying about how it takes a village to raise a child. She explained that humans understand that everyone must help everyone else because alone you die. But together you survive and grow strong. Kisra held up a small carving she had made herself. It showed a human and a Crithian standing side by side, carved from local wood in traditional Crithian style. We have learned from you, Kisra said, looking at Amy. Will you keep learning with us? Amy knelt down, accepting the gift with hands that trembled slightly. The carving was beautiful, detailed work that must have taken weeks. Always, she said softly. Friends teach each other. That's how friendship grows. Ambassador Threnok stepped forward, his insectoid features somehow conveying warmth through body language that transcended species. A holographic projection appeared above him, showing the assembly hall at Unity Prime. The Galactic Assembly has reviewed all reports from New Dawn. We have read testimony from Crithian families. We have watched footage of human actions. We have consulted with xenopsychologists, sociologists, and cultural experts from across assembly space. He paused, and Amy felt her heart beating faster. The Security Council has voted. Humanity is hereby granted provisional membership in the Galactic Assembly. In 5 years, we will review for permanent membership. Until then, humans are welcome on assembly worlds, may establish trade relationships, and may participate in cultural exchanges. Welcome to the galactic community. On Earth, celebrations erupted in every major city. Humans danced in the streets, fireworks lit up night skies, and the news played on every screen. Humanity had been accepted. They had a place among the stars. But on New Dawn, the celebration was quieter and somehow more profound. The Crithians and humans gathered together, sharing food and stories, laughing and singing. The barriers that had once separated them were gone, replaced by genuine affection and respect. Velcor, now recovered from his injuries, though still moving carefully, found Amy at the edge of the gathering. Together they walked to a hillside overlooking the colony, where they could see the lights and hear the distant sounds of celebration. "I've been thinking about what makes someone a Deathworlder," Velcor said quietly. "We feared you because your world is harsh, but harshness creates different things in different species. Some become brutal and cruel. Some become cautious and withdrawn. Humans became something else. What did we become?" Amy asked. "Hopeful," Velcor said. "Your world tried to kill you for millions of years, and instead of becoming bitter or hateful, you became creative. You looked at problems and saw puzzles to solve. You looked at each other and saw allies instead of competitors. Your world taught you that death is always close, so you learned to value life more, not less." Amy was quiet, watching the lights of the colony below. Velcor continued. "When you came into that cave to save us, bleeding and determined, refusing to leave us behind, I finally understood. The galaxy fears Deathworlders because we think surviving harsh worlds means becoming monsters. But survival can also mean becoming heroes. You're the apex of Deathworlds not because you're the strongest or most dangerous. You're the apex because you're the kindest while being strong enough to protect that kindness. We have a lot to learn from your species too," Amy said. "You've built a civilization based on cooperation and peace. That's something Earth is still working toward. We still have wars. We still hurt each other. We have the capacity for terrible things. But you also have the capacity for wonderful things," Velcor replied. "Perhaps that's the real lesson. Every species has darkness and light. The question is which one you choose to nurture." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the twin suns set over New Dawn. The sky turned colors that Earth never saw, purples and oranges mixing in ways that took Amy's breath away. "What happens now?" Velcor asked. "Now," Amy said, "we build something new. A friendship between species, a partnership. You teach us your wisdom and peace. We teach you our resilience and determination. Together, maybe we can create something better than either of us could alone." Far above them, ships from dozens of worlds were already making their way toward Earth. Some carried diplomats eager to establish formal relationships. Some carried traders looking for new markets and opportunities. Some carried scientists hoping to study the famous Death World and learn its secrets. And from Earth, ships were preparing to launch. Human diplomats, merchants, scientists, and explorers were getting ready to venture into a galaxy that had finally opened its doors to them. The future was uncertain. There would be misunderstandings, conflicts, and challenges. But there would also be friendship, cooperation, and hope. Amy looked at Velcor, her friend who had been so afraid of her when they first met, and smiled. "Thank you for giving us a chance." "Thank you for proving we were wrong to be afraid," Velcor replied. "Well, not wrong to be afraid. You are genuinely dangerous, but wrong to think that danger was all you were," Amy laughed. "I'll take that as a compliment." The celebration continued below, voices raised in song and laughter, human and alien mixing together without fear or hesitation. The cubs of New Dawn no longer froze when they scented human blood. Instead, they recognized it as the scent of friends, of allies, of people who would face danger to protect them. The apex of Deathworlds wasn't about being deadly. It was about being alive, truly alive, and making the choice every day to use strength for good rather than evil. And in the peaceful twilight of an alien world, that seemed like a victory worth celebrating. The final month of the exchange program felt both too fast and too slow. Amy, Lisa, and Marcus knew their time on New Dawn was ending, but they had become so much a part of the community that leaving felt wrong. The colony had transformed. What had started as a test, a way to see if humans could live peacefully among aliens, had become something much deeper. Friendships had formed. Families had welcomed the humans into their homes. Cubs who had once hidden now ran up to greet them in the streets. Lisa spent her last weeks organizing a massive art exhibition. Human and Crithian artists displayed their work side by side, showing how different perspectives could create something beautiful together. One piece created by a human child on Earth and a Crithian cub on New Dawn, working through video communication, became famous across assembly space. It showed two hands, human and Crithian, reaching toward each other across a starry sky. Marcus organized a final tournament, with mixed teams of humans and Crithians competing in various sports. The games were joyful and chaotic, filled with laughter and friendly competition. Parents cheered, cubs played, and for those few days, it was easy to forget that any of them had ever been afraid of each other. Amy spent her time writing reports for both the Assembly and Earth. She documented everything they had learned, every success and failure, every moment of connection and understanding. But she also spent time simply walking through the colony, memorizing the purple plants and double shadows, the sound of Crithian voices, the feeling of being somewhere that had become a second home. 1 week before they were scheduled to leave, the colony held a formal ceremony. Every resident gathered in the central plaza, along with holographic representatives from Unity Prime and Earth. The crowd was enormous, thousands of Crithians and the 3 humans who had changed their world. Draknor stood on a raised platform, his voice carried by speakers throughout the plaza. 1 year ago, 3 humans came to New Dawn. We were afraid. We did not understand them. We thought their strength meant they would hurt us. We thought their world of death had made them cruel. He gestured to Amy, Lisa, and Marcus. We were wrong. These humans taught us that strength and kindness can exist together. They showed us that surviving hardship doesn't destroy compassion. It deepens it. They proved that different species from vastly different worlds can become not just neighbors but friends. Shara, Velkor's mother, stepped forward. My son nearly died in those caves. Commander Carter risked her life to save him. She crawled through darkness and stone, bleeding and afraid. Because that is what friends do. She gave us a gift we can never fully repay. She gave us hope. Therna came next, Kisra walking proudly beside her. My daughter almost fell to her death. Commander Carter saved her without thinking, acting on pure instinct to protect a child. In that moment, we learned that human instincts are not just about survival. They are about protecting others, about choosing courage over safety. Kisra, now confident and articulate, addressed the crowd herself. The humans taught us their saying about villages raising children. But I think we need a new saying. It takes a galaxy to raise the future. We must all help each other, all species working together, because alone we survive, but together we thrive. The crowd made the thrumming sound Amy had learned was approval and agreement. The sound vibrated through her chest, and she felt tears beginning to form in her eyes. Ambassador Threnok appeared via hologram, his translator rendering his clicks into solemn words. The Assembly acknowledges the success of this exchange. Humanity has proven itself worthy of our trust. But more than that, you have taught us something valuable. We became comfortable in our peace. We forgot that peace is not the absence of strength. It is strength used wisely. He paused, and the hologram shifted to show the assembly hall at Unity Prime, filled with aliens of every imaginable form. The Assembly has voted to accelerate humanity's membership review. In 1 year, not 5, we will vote on permanent membership, but we do not expect that vote to be difficult. You have already proven yourselves. On Earth, people were crying and cheering. The news feeds showed celebrations in every city, every country. Humanity had not just been accepted. They had been welcomed. But on New Dawn, something more personal was happening. Velkor approached the platform, moving with a slight limp that was all that remained of his injuries. He carried a large box made of local wood, beautifully carved. Commander Carter, he said formally, on behalf of New Dawn, we present you with this gift. Amy opened the box. Inside were hundreds of small carvings, each one made by a different Crithian. Some showed scenes from Earth, created from descriptions the humans had provided. Some showed moments from the year, like Amy saving the cub or Marcus teaching soccer. Some were abstract, representing concepts like friendship, courage, or hope. Every family contributed, Velkor explained. Every family wanted you to remember us and to know that you changed our lives. Amy couldn't speak. She looked at Lisa and Marcus, who were also receiving gifts, also crying. After a moment, she found her voice. We came here to prove that humans could live peacefully with other species. But you gave us so much more than that. You gave us friendship. You gave us trust. You welcomed us when you had every reason to be afraid. You taught us that the universe is full of people worth knowing, worth protecting, worth loving. She looked out at the crowd, at the thousands of faces watching her. Earth is harsh. It made us strong and resilient. But you've shown us something just as important. You've shown us that gentleness is not weakness. That peace is something worth building. That different doesn't mean dangerous. Amy held up one of the carvings, a simple piece showing a human and Crithian child playing together. When we return to Earth, we'll tell everyone about you. We'll tell them about your kindness, your wisdom, your courage in welcoming strangers. And when other humans come here, and they will come, they'll know they're not just visiting a colony. They're visiting friends. The ceremony continued with music and food, stories and laughter. Cubs performed songs they had learned from Lisa. Teenagers demonstrated soccer moves Marcus had taught them. Adults shared meals with the humans one last time. As night fell and the twin moons rose, Amy found herself on the same hillside where she and Velcor had talked months before. He joined her again and they sat in comfortable silence for a while. "I'm going to miss this place," Amy said quietly. "You can come back any time," Velcor replied. "You'll always be welcome here. All humans will be welcome here." "That means everything," Amy said. "A year ago we were feared. Now we're friends. That's more than I hoped for." Velcor's ears twitched in amusement. "You know what the Cubs say now? They play a game where they pretend to be humans. They run and climb and try to be as strong and brave as you. You've become heroes to them." "That's a lot of responsibility," Amy said, but she was smiling. "You can handle it," Velcor said confidently. "You're the apex of Death Worlds, remember?" Amy laughed. "I still don't know if that's a compliment or an insult." "It's both," Velcor said. "And that's what makes it perfect. You're dangerous and kind, strong and gentle, survivors and friends. You're contradictions that somehow work. That's what makes you human." They watched the lights of the colony below, where humans and Crithians were still celebrating together. Ships from other worlds orbited above, their crews eager to meet the famous humans and learn from the successful exchange. "What happens now?" Velcor asked, the same question he had asked months before. But Amy's answer was different this time. Now we change the galaxy. Not through conquest or force, but through friendship. We show every species that being different doesn't mean being enemies. We prove that strength can protect instead of threaten. We build bridges instead of walls." She stood up, offering Velcor her hand to help him up. He took it without hesitation, and together they walked back toward the celebration. The future stretched ahead, vast and uncertain. There would be challenges. Not every species would welcome humans as the Crithians had. There would be conflicts, misunderstandings, and setbacks. But there would also be friendship, cooperation, and hope. The Cubs of New Dawn no longer froze when they scented human blood. They ran toward it, knowing it meant their friends were near. They had learned that the apex of Death Worlds wasn't about being the deadliest creature in the galaxy. It was about being strong enough to be gentle, brave enough to be kind, and wise enough to know when to use which quality. It was about surviving a harsh world and choosing to make the universe a little less harsh for everyone else. As Amy rejoined the celebration, surrounded by friends who had once been strangers, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. Earth had made humanity strong, but the Crithians had shown them what to do with that strength. Not to conquer, not to dominate, but to protect, to defend, to stand beside those who needed allies. That was the real meaning of being the apex of Death Worlds. Not the strongest or the deadliest, but the ones who chose compassion, even when they had the power to choose otherwise. And as the celebration continued under alien stars, with human and Crithian voices raised together in song and laughter, it seemed like humanity had finally found their place in the universe, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as friends.